Mike Tyson walked into the MGM Grand that night ready to take a belt. But before he even touched the ring, he did something so disrespectful the whole VIP section went silent. And what Muhammad Ali did next didn't just humble Tyson, it rewired him.
It was the kind of night where you could feel history walking through the building. Not in a poetic way, in a real way. Like the walls of the MGM Grand in Las Vegas were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen that no one could control. March 1996. The boxing world wasn't just excited, it was obsessed. Because Mike Tyson was back. 3 years away. 3 years of rumors. 3 years of people arguing in barbershops, on radios, in gyms, saying the same question again and again. Is he still the same monster? Tyson was only 29, but he already carried the weight of a legend. The youngest heavyweight champion in history, the face you saw on posters, the name you heard in whispers. Some fighters were feared because they were strong. Tyson was feared because he made people feel like they were already losing, before the first bell even rang. And tonight, he was supposed to take back what he believed was his. The WBC title. Frank Bruno. A champion with pride, a man with a solid jab, a man who had waited for his moment. But nobody came to see Bruno. They came to see the return of Iron Mike. They came to see if the old Tyson was still inside that body, still inside those eyes. And that's why the arena was packed with more than just fans. This wasn't just a fight night. It was an event. Celebrities, reporters, promoters, old champions, young contenders hopping to be noticed. Everybody wanted to be able to say later, I was there. But that night, Tyson wasn't the only legend in the building. Because sitting quietly in the VIP section was Muhammad Ali. And the moment word spread that Ali was there, the energy shifted. Not louder, not wilder, just different, more serious, more respectful. Like even the people who came to party suddenly remembered they were standing near something sacred. Ali was 54, and Parkinson's had taken so much from him. His movements were slower now, his hands trembled, his body didn't obey him the way it once did. The man who used to float like a dancer and talk like a poet now had to measure every step, every breath, every word. But here's the thing. Even with all that, Ali's presence still had power. Not the loud kind. Not the look-at-me kind. The quiet kind. The kind that makes grown men straighten their backs without realizing it. The kind that makes young fighters, tough fighters, dangerous fighters, walk up like little kids just to shake his hand. Because Ali wasn't just a boxer. Ali was proof that a human being could be more than the sport. That you could fight in the ring and still stand for something outside it. That you could be brave with your fists and brave with your life. That night, Ali sat with his wife, Lonnie, watching the undercard. Not smiling much. Not talking much. Just watching. And even though his body was slowed, his eyes were still sharp. Those famous eyes that once stared down Sonny Liston, George Foreman, Joe Frazier. Those eyes still carried that same message. I've seen it all. People came by in waves. Old friends. Fans who shouldn't have been near VIP, but somehow got there. Young fighters who knew they would never touch greatness if they didn't touch Ali's hand. Some of them leaned down and spoke softly like they were talking to royalty. Some took photos. Some just stood there, frozen, like they couldn't believe he was real. And Ali, he didn't need to perform. He didn't need to say anything. He just nodded. A small smile here and there. A gentle handshake. A quiet acknowledgement that made people feel like they mattered. To most men in that arena, Muhammad Ali was untouchable. But Tyson was in a different place mentally. Tyson wasn't thinking about history. He wasn't thinking about legacy. He was thinking about one thing. Fear. Because fear was his weapon. It was his armor. It was the story he wanted the world to remember. Fresh out of prison, he felt like he had something to prove to everybody. Not just as a fighter, but as a man. And in Tyson's mind, respect could look like weakness. Kindness could look like softness. And softness was dangerous. So Tyson built himself up before a fight the way some men build a wall. No warmth, no humility, no nice to see you. Just menace, just control, just intimidation. Because Tyson didn't want people to see a human being. He wanted people to see a storm. So as the undercard fights rolled on, Tyson moved through the building like he owned the air. He wasn't alone. He had his entourage, trainers, managers, security, friends, hangers-on, people who smiled too much and laughed too hard at everything he said. Where Tyson walked, people stepped aside. Not politely, automatically. It was like their bodies reacted before their minds did. And Tyson liked that. He liked the way the crowd made space for him. He liked the way conversations stopped. He liked the way the room leaned into him. Because for Tyson, dominance wasn't something you turned on in the ring. It was something you wore everywhere. Then in the VIP section, Tyson's eyes caught something. A familiar face. Not just familiar. A face bigger than boxing itself. Muhammad Ali. Just sitting there. Calm. Quiet. Surrounded by respect. And in that moment, Tyson didn't see a hero. He didn't see the man who made boxing beautiful. He didn't see the man who sacrificed years for his principles. He saw something else. He saw a symbol of the old guard, a symbol of the past, and something inside Tyson, something wounded, something proud, something hungry, wanted to do what it always did when it felt threatened. It wanted to tear the symbol down, because that's what pain does. Pain doesn't always cry. Sometimes pain bites. Ali was talking quietly with Larry Holmes, another heavyweight legend. Holmes sat close, leaning in, respectful, like he didn't want Ali to strain himself. They weren't being loud. They weren't trying to get attention. They were just two men from the same world, sharing a quiet moment. But when Tyson approached, the whole VIP section changed. You could see it. People noticed immediately. Heads turned, whispers spread, and suddenly it felt like the room itself stepped back to make space for a collision. Two generations, two kinds of power, two very different definitions of what it means to be a champion. Tyson walked right up. No smile, no handshake, no Mr. Ali. Just that hard stare. And when he spoke, he made sure his voice carried. Not just to Ali, but to everyone nearby. Because Tyson didn't just want to disrespect a man. He wanted an audience for it. He wanted witnesses. He wanted the world to feel what he felt. This need to be the biggest presence in any room. Tyson looked at Ali and said loud enough for people to stop chewing, stop talking, stop breathing. Well, if it isn't the old man who talks too much. The words didn't just land. They hit, like somebody had thrown a glass, and it shattered in slow motion. Lonnie Ali's face tightened instantly. Larry Holmes shifted in his seat, uncomfortable, like he couldn't believe what he just heard. A few people laughed nervously, not because it was funny, but because some people laugh when they're scared. And Ali. Ali looked up slowly. His face stayed calm, almost unreadable. But his eyes locked onto Tyson like a spotlight. And that stare alone made something feel wrong about Tyson's choice. Because you could insult Ali's body. You could insult his speed. You could insult his age. But you couldn't insult his presence without paying for it in some way. Tyson didn't stop. He saw the reaction. He felt the attention. And like someone who tasted power and wanted more, he leaned in harder. His voice grew sharper, crueler, and he said, "You know what your problem was, old man?" He paused, let the room hang, let the silence build. Then he continued, like he was proud of himself. "You fought a bunch of easy guys and thought you were tough. If you fought in my time, I would have shut you down in 2 rounds. Now there was no nervous laughter, just shock, because this wasn't normal fight hype. This wasn't Tyson selling tickets. This was a young man attacking a legend. A legend whose body was clearly fighting something bigger than any opponent. And the worst part, Tyson was aiming right at that. Right at the shaking hands. Right at the slowed movements. Right at the thing Ali couldn't control. Ali's hand rested on the chair arm. It trembled. Maybe from the disease. Maybe from emotion. Nobody could tell. And the entire VIP section went so quiet you could hear the distant roar of the crowd from the arena bowl. People were waiting for Ali to react. Some expected anger. Some expected silence. Some expected Holmes to step in. But Ali didn't move quickly. He didn't jump up. He didn't shout. He just looked at Tyson like he was studying him. Like he was seeing past the mask. And Tyson took that calmness as an invitation. As if Ali's silence meant he had won. So Tyson smiled slightly. And he went for what he thought would be the final strike. He gestured at Ali's hands, and his voice dropped into something colder. Look at you now, can't even talk right, can't even keep your hands steady. And then he added, almost like a dare. What kind of champion were you really? That question hung in the air like smoke. And for a moment, Ali still didn't answer. He just stared. And something about that stare started to make Tyson shift. Because now, it wasn't Tyson controlling the moment anymore. It was Ali. Ali who looked physically weaker, but somehow felt like the strongest man in that section. And then, Ali did something nobody expected. He began to rise from his chair. Slowly, carefully, with effort, with dignity. And the second he stood, the entire room felt smaller. Because now it wasn't just a legend sitting down. It was a legend standing up, facing Tyson, eye to eye. And as Ali took a breath, preparing to speak, Tyson's face changed. Just slightly. The first crack in the armor. A flicker of uncertainty. Because deep down, Tyson realized something too late. He didn't just insult an old man. He challenged a spirit that had never been beaten. And whatever Ali was about to say was going to land harder than any punch. And that's where the real fight began. Ali stood there for a moment, steadying himself. Not because he was afraid of Tyson, but because his body didn't always cooperate the way he wanted. The room watched closely. Some people leaned forward like they were afraid to miss a single breath. Others looked away because the tension felt too personal, too raw, like watching a family argument that should have stayed private. Tyson remained standing, shoulders wide, chin lifted, trying to look untouched. But his eyes kept flicking. Not around the room like before. Now they were fixed on Ali's face. Because something about Ali standing up made Tyson's words suddenly feel ugly. Like they didn't belong in this space. Ali's hands trembled as he brought them closer to his body. His fingers moved slightly, restless, like they were searching for the speed they used to have. Tyson's mouth tightened. He wanted a reaction. He wanted anger. He wanted Ali to swing back with words so Tyson could swing harder. That's what Tyson understood: fight, bite, dominate, win. But Ali didn't give him any of that. Instead, Ali took one slow breath, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet. Not weak. Quiet. And somehow, that quiet voice forced everyone to listen even more. Son, that's all he said at first. Just one word. But it didn't sound like an insult. It didn't sound like trash talk. It sounded like truth. Like a father calling a boy back from the edge of something dangerous. Tyson blinked as if he didn't expect that. Ali continued, calm and slow. I fought when boxing was boxing. The VIP section stayed frozen. Ali looked at Tyson like he could see every bruise on the inside of him. I fought men who people said would end me, Ali said. I fought Foreman when everybody said he'd hurt me. I fought Frazier when he wanted to take my head off. He paused, not for drama, but because his body demanded it. Then he added softer, "And I did it when it meant something." That phrase, "when it meant something," hit like a bell ringing in Tyson's chest. Because Tyson had spent his whole life proving he was tough. But Ali was talking about something bigger than toughness. Ali tilted his head slightly, still staring into Tyson's eyes. "But you want to know the biggest fight?" he asked. Tyson didn't answer. Nobody did. Ali let the silence sit for one breath longer, then said, "The biggest fight is the one I'm fighting right now." And at that moment, something changed in Tyson's face. Because now Ali wasn't defending his past. He wasn't arguing about eras. He wasn't trying to win a debate. He was showing Tyson something Tyson had never learned. There are fights you can't win with your fists. Ali's voice grew a little firmer, not louder, just firmer. "Every day," Ali said, "when I wake up and this disease wants to keep me in bed." He swallowed. His lips moved slowly, carefully. "I get up anyway." The room stayed silent, but you could feel emotion starting to move through it like electricity. Ali continued, "When it wants to stop me from talking, I speak anyway." He looked down at his own trembling hand for a second, not ashamed, just honest. "When it wants to make me hide, I show up anyway." Now Ali took one step forward. It wasn't a dramatic step. It was a hard step. A step that cost him effort. And because it cost him effort, it carried a kind of power nobody could fake. Tyson didn't move back. But he stopped leaning forward. His shoulders dropped just a fraction. Ali's eyes held him. "You think I'm weak because I shake?" Ali asked. No accusation in his voice. Just a question that forced the truth out of the air. "You think I'm finished because I talk slow?" Tyson's lips parted like he wanted to answer, but nothing came out. Because what could he say? Ali leaned in slightly. Not threatening. Not aggressive. Just close enough for Tyson to feel the weight of him. "Son," Ali said, "I'm fighting a battle every second of every day." He paused, then finished quietly. "That would break most men before breakfast." That line landed like a punch to the soul. Because Tyson had fought fear his whole life. But Ali was talking about waking up in a body that betrayed you, and still choosing to stand in public anyway. Ali's voice softened again. "And I'm still here." Tyson swallowed. His jaw flexed. Something inside him started to shift. The room could see it. Even the toughest men there, fighters, trainers, security, looked like they were holding back emotion. Ali wasn't humiliating Tyson. He was exposing him. And somehow, that exposure felt more powerful than revenge. Ali lifted his hand. It trembled, but he lifted it anyway. And he placed it gently on Tyson's shoulder. The touch was light, almost fatherly, and yet it froze Tyson in place. Because Tyson knew violence. He knew intimidation. He knew shouting. But he didn't know this. This kind of strength, this kind of calm, this kind of mercy. Ali spoke again, looking right into his eyes. "You want to know what makes a champion?" Tyson's eyes flickered, as if he didn't want to hear the answer but needed it. "It's not the fights you win when you're strong," Ali said. "It's the fights you win when you got nothing left." Ali's hand stayed on Tyson's shoulder. "You're young," Ali said. "You're strong." A small pause. "And you're scared." That word, scared, did something to Tyson. Because Tyson hated being called that. Tyson built his whole image to hide that. But Ali didn't say it like an insult. Ali said it like a fact. Like a doctor reading a pulse. "I can see it in your eyes," Ali continued. "You think if you tear down everyone before you, it makes you bigger." Ali slowly shook his head. "But champions don't tear down champions." His voice dropped even lower. "Champions lift each other up." Now Tyson's face changed fully. The sneer was gone. The hard mask was cracking. His eyes became shiny in a way he couldn't control. And Tyson, Iron Mike Tyson, looked suddenly like a boy who had been caught doing something cruel and didn't know how to take it back. His breath became uneven. He tried to hold it in, but the emotion rose too fast. Because now, in front of all these people, Tyson wasn't being defeated by a punch. He was being defeated by a mirror. And in that mirror, Tyson saw himself clearly. A young man full of anger, full of shame, full of hurt he didn't know what to do with. His voice came out smaller than anyone had ever heard it. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ali." The room almost didn't believe it. Tyson's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I don't know why I said those things." Ali didn't hesitate. He didn't make Tyson beg. He didn't punish him. Ali answered immediately, like he'd been waiting to say it. "Because you're hurt, son." Tyson's eyes dropped. Ali continued. "Hurt people hurt people." A short pause. "But champions help heal." And with that, Ali pulled Tyson in. Not as a rival, not as an enemy, but as a troubled young man who needed guidance. The two men embraced. And in that moment, the room forgot about belts. Forgot about money. Forgot about hype. Because what they were seeing wasn't boxing. It was something human. Something rare. Something that made even the hardest hearts in that building feel soft for a second. And as they separated, Tyson wiped his face quickly, embarrassed that anyone had seen him like this. But Ali didn't let him hide. Ali looked at him one last time and said quietly, "Go fight your fight tonight." Tyson nodded. And as Tyson walked away, he didn't walk the same. The shoulders weren't as high. The chest wasn't puffed the same. The intimidation was still there, but something else was there too now. A crack. A seed. A lesson planted in the middle of a moment Tyson thought he was controlling. And while the crowd slowly started breathing again, one truth settled into the room like a weight. Whatever happened in the ring tonight, Mike Tyson had already been changed outside of it. Tyson walked out of that VIP section like a man who had just survived something he didn't know how to explain. Not a punch, not a threat, not even an argument. It was worse than all of that. It was a moment where he saw himself clearly and didn't like what he saw. His entourage followed behind him, talking like normal, business plans, walkout music, timing, but Tyson barely heard them. Because Ali's words kept replaying in his head like a slow drumbeat. Hurt people, but champions help heal. Tyson had been taught how to punch. He had been taught how to scare men. He had been taught how to break confidence. But nobody had ever taught him how to sit with his own pain without turning it into poison. And tonight, in front of everyone, Muhammad Ali had made Tyson feel something he wasn't prepared for. Shame. Not the kind you can fight. Not the kind you can shout away. The kind that quietly sits on your chest and makes you question who you are when nobody's watching. Back in the locker room area, Tyson's hands were being wrapped. The ritual was familiar, the smell of tape, sweat, and rubbing alcohol, the low hum of people doing their jobs. Normally, this is where Tyson became a machine. Normally, he would be locked in, eyes cold, jaw tight, brain empty except for violence and victory. But tonight, even his body felt different. He kept flexing his fingers. He kept staring at his knuckles like they didn't belong to him. His trainer asked him a question, something simple, something about timing, and Tyson didn't answer right away. Then he blinked like he was waking up. "Yes," he muttered, "yeah, I'm good." But he wasn't sure if he meant it. Because somewhere inside him, two versions of Mike Tyson were fighting. The old Tyson, the one built on fear, rage, and survival, was still there. But now there was another Tyson, one who had just been touched by a trembling hand and felt more power in that gentle grip than he felt in any knockout. And as the minutes passed, the building started shaking with noise. Because the main event was coming. The crowd was getting restless. They weren't here for a chess match. They were here for destruction. They wanted the Tyson they remembered. They wanted the Tyson they feared. They wanted to see Frank Bruno shut down. And Frank Bruno, he was warming up in his own space, telling himself this was his night. He had the title, he had the spotlight, He had waited too long for this moment to give it away without a fight. Bruno knew what Tyson was. He'd seen the tapes. He'd seen the knockouts. But Bruno also believed something else. 3 years away changes a man. Rust happens. Timing disappears. Fear fades. So Bruno kept telling himself, if I can survive early, I can win. But when Tyson's walkout music hit, and the lights shifted, and that familiar shape stepped into view, the crowd erupted like they'd been waiting to scream for years. Tyson walked toward the ring with that same heavy, controlled pace. No dancing. No waving. Just that straight line. Like a storm moving toward a city. Yet if you looked close, really close, Tyson's eyes weren't just angry. They were busy. Like he was carrying something invisible. Like part of him was still standing in that VIP section, hearing Ali's voice. Tyson climbed into the ring. Frank Bruno stood across from him. The referee gave instructions. The gloves touched. And in that moment, Bruno could see it. Tyson wasn't here for points. Tyson wasn't here for a decision. Tyson was here to prove something. And the bell rang. Bruno came out cautious, trying to keep distance, trying to establish his jab. For the first minute, he even had a moment, just a moment, where he looked like he belonged there. The crowd reacted to every Bruno jab like it was hope. But Tyson was watching. Patient, coiled, and then he stepped in. Not wild, not sloppy, just sharp, fast, the kind of speed that makes a heavyweight look like a different species. Tyson's head movement was there. His body shots started digging. Bruno tried to clinch, tried to hold, tried to slow him down. But Tyson's power didn't look rusty. It looked hungry. In the second round, the pressure increased. Bruno's face started changing. That slight confidence began to melt. And when Tyson landed clean, Bruno's legs betrayed him for half a second, just enough for Bruno to realize. He's still here. By the third round, the end was coming. Tyson's punches weren't just punches. They were statements. And as Bruno backed up toward the ropes, trying to cover, trying to survive, Tyson unleashed a combination that forced the referee to step in. It was over. Tyson had reclaimed the WBC title. The crowd exploded. Cameras flashed. People screamed. Announcers shouted about the return of the baddest man on the planet. And Tyson raised his gloves. But his celebration didn't look like pure joy. It looked like relief. Like someone who did what he had to do, but still had something heavy on his heart. After the fight, Tyson was pulled into interviews. Microphones crowded his face. Reporters fired questions. How did it feel? Is Tyson back? What's next? Tyson answered some of it. Short responses. Focused. But then someone asked him something different. Something that had already started spreading through the arena. Mike, we heard you had a moment tonight with Muhammad Ali. Tyson froze. Just for a second. His eyes shifted. And for the first time, the tough mask didn't come back fully. He exhaled. Slow. Then he said quietly, I learned more about fighting in 30 seconds with Muhammad Ali than I learned in 3 years anywhere else. The reporter blinked. The people around leaned in. Tyson continued, I thought being tough meant never showing weakness. He swallowed hard. But he showed me, being tough means showing up when you're weak. That quote moved fast. Not just through boxing. Through people. Because anyone watching could understand it. You didn't have to be a fighter to know what it feels like to be afraid. To be angry. To want to hurt someone just so you don't feel your own hurt. That same night, while Tyson's win headlines spread, there was another story traveling quietly through the building. The story of what happened before the fight. The story of Tyson walking up with disrespect. And walking away with tears. And the more people repeated it, the more it turned into something bigger than gossip. It became a lesson, because Tyson had power the whole world could see. But Ali had power the world didn't talk about enough. The power to respond to cruelty with dignity. The power to correct someone without humiliating them. The power to teach instead of punish. And for Tyson, that night didn't just mark a comeback. It marked a crack in the armor. A beginning. A moment that would follow him long after the belts and crowds faded. Because deep down, Tyson knew the truth now. Winning a title was hard. But facing yourself, that was the hardest fight of all. And somewhere in the noise, under the lights, behind the glory, Mike Tyson finally understood what a real champion looks like. Not the one who scares everyone in the room, but the one who can still stand tall, even when life is shaking his hands. And as the world celebrated Tyson's return, the real victory that night belonged to Muhammad Ali. Because in less than a minute, he turned disrespect into a lesson and showed the world that greatness isn't just what you do when you're strong. It's what you do when you've got every reason to hide, and you still show up anyway.